Hello and welcome. This is Michele Christensen of One Noteworthy Life, and this is a Plan With Me video for September of 2021. I'm filming in OneNote for Windows 10, and I'm going to walk you through how I evaluate the past month and get set up for a new month. I film my Plan With Me videos after going through my monthly process so that I can take some time to evaluate and reflect, and then I can give you a concise overview when I'm done. Now, this month, I'm switching things up a little bit for September, so this will be a little bit different. I'm switching to a more GTD or getting things done style. I'll go into more detail later, but I realize that these monthly goal setting and review sessions that I do are not really keeping with the GTD methodology. And you'll also see that the pages I use aren't very tricked out in terms of OneNote, so there aren't really any tips or tricks to show you. So that's why I've already done it, and I'm giving you a walkthrough. So let's get into it. First thing I do is look at my goals for the last month, which in this case is August. So this is One Noteworthy Life, which is my YouTube channel and business. And the goals are in black. The blue is my commentary on it. And I just use whatever color I feel like using. It's just to differentiate the commentary from the original goal that I wrote down. So the first thing I wrote down was my editorial schedule. So for a while now, maybe close to a year, I have been working on creating a pretty rigid rigorous, I should say, editorial schedule and sticking to it. And I've been getting close, but I haven't quite hit it most months. So I decided to just take a month away from this goal and see if that gave me some more perspective and energy. I'm really glad I did that. It worked great, and I'm going to also go a little bit easier in September, maybe back off on what I have scheduled in terms of content. My next goal was to work on my Amazon storefront. So I still have a few remaining tasks, but the shop is done, it's operational, it's linked in the description, and I'm not selling my own products on Amazon. These are just products you can buy on Amazon that I use and love. And if you end up buying from the shop, it does help support my channel, so that would be awesome. The final goal I had for One Noteworthy Life was for my GTD live streams. I'm going back through the book, doing an in-depth study, and I'm going to be doing some live streams so we can have conversations around some of these topics. And I did have a goal to complete the first live stream. I have not done that, but I do have it scheduled. I don't have a link for you yet, but hopefully in the next week I will have a link available. And then I have a stretch goal that when I do that first live stream, that I have the next few scheduled so that I can give the dates and the details out during that live stream. So next I have my August personal goals, and the first goal I had was for my calories. I am actively working to drop some extra weight, so I try and undereat by a little bit each day, and my goal in August was 350, and I didn't hit this mainly because I was trying to reset my sleep, and that was an experiment. I tried it. I ended up kind of having a few days where I really crashed, so I was not able to hit that goal. I want to continue reading GTD, and so I've been doing just 15 minutes a day of either reading in the book or doing implementation, and it's just going great. I just love it. I'm getting so much out of it. It's awesome. And then I had written this in August, which is that a possible idea was to switch to a weekly plan to be more in line with GTD, and I'm doing that in September, so that's great. So the next thing is my what else page, and I like to just write this down just so that I can have a place to jot notes that kind of what impacted my month, whether they're good, bad, unexpected, whatever. And the only thing I had for August was that I want to work toward a system built around GTD, that these monthly plans are good, but they sort of exist outside of any formal structure within GTD. The next to last thing is my August annual plan, and this is what I thought I would be doing in August when I set up my year at the beginning of the year, and we just had 2 family birthdays and my business license was due, so I got all that taken care of. We had 2 nice birthdays, and then the last thing is my August calendar. I'm going to scroll a little bit so you can see this whole thing, and I like to write down one good thing that happened each day. It's really fun, and it gives me a chance to look and make sure I can find something good that happened that day, and I can always find something. So that's the August calendar. Now let's talk about September. So this is where it gets interesting. So you may have seen me mention that I've been doing a deep dive on GTD, and I mentioned it earlier in this video, and that is the system and book Getting Things Done by David Allen. And as I mentioned, this monthly process, it works great, it gets me results, but it's really not in line with the GTD methodology. And so one of the things I decided when I went into rereading GTD is that I wanted to really go deep into it, really get into it and see how powerful this could be for me when I go fully into it. So I've decided to do a more weekly oriented planning. So one of the components of GTD is that you have different levels at which you view your life. And certainly at some of those higher levels, you set goals and habits and think more about how you want to live and what you want your day-to-day life to look at like. And this monthly goal setting helps me with that, like at that level, that goal setting level and moving my life forward. But there's no weekly focus. And a huge component of GTD is the weekly review. I also don't feel particularly tied to this. It was just something I started doing. It works great for me, so I've been doing it for a few years now, but I'm not tied to it in any way. So in September, I am doing a very rough draft switch over to GTD, and I'm filming a little later in the month, so you'll see that I've already done some of these. This will be my first version of using GTD more completely and with a weekly review, and so I expect to make changes as I go. So there were two things that came up first when I started getting into my GTD implementation. So the first was I had a lot of concern that I'm switching systems. So, everyone has their kind of system where they write things down and keep track of things and stuff. And I have a good, solid system. I don't generally lose things or lose track of things. What I was worried about was that during the changeover, something might slip through the cracks. So I felt like I needed a place where I could reliably put things that were really important, things that I could not have slip through the cracks. And so I decided that anything that I was really worried about would go on my Google Calendar. And I look at that a lot. I work from it. I process the items on it every day. So I felt like if there's something that can't slip through the cracks, it can go there. This is, however, a stopgap measure. It's just meant to help me have peace of mind that nothing is slipping through the cracks. The reason for that is that putting this type of thing on your calendar is contradictory to the GTD guidance on using a calendar. In GTD, the only things that should go on your calendar are set appointments for the day, so meetings or events with a hard time, things that you have to do that day, like if you want to call someone on their birthday, you have to do it that day, or information that you need for that day. So maybe you need instructions on how to dial into a meeting, and you could put that on the day. But other things don't belong on your calendar. So it's just a little bit ironic that that's what I'm using to give myself peace of mind. It's kind of contrary to the system I'm trying to implement. But I do consider it a stopgap measure. I'm not going to keep doing this. It's just to make sure that I feel comfortable that nothing's going to slip through the cracks. The second point I want to make about my GTD implementation is about the weekly review. Now, I first read GTD more than 10 years ago, and I have never done a weekly review until recently. I kind of never saw the point, and now that I've started doing it, I can't believe what I was missing, which I should have known. I'm going to expand on this more in the GTD livestream series that's coming up. But the weekly review is where you go through your current project list and make sure that each project has either a defined next action or some other defined status instead of just kind of floating around in the back of your awareness. A short description of the project list is that it includes anything that has more than one next action that you want to be in a different state or completed within a 1-year time frame. The figure I grabbed from the GTD website is that most people will have between 10 and 100 projects at a given time for both personal and professional combined. Now, I did get a little bit stuck on where to store my weekly review. I like to have it formatted as like a table or spreadsheet where each line is a project and then the columns represent the date for the specific weekly review. I thought about doing a OneNote table, but one thing I have found with tables in OneNote is that they start to slow down when they get really big. I have several really big tables and they're so bogged down. So I didn't want to use a table. I thought about doing an Excel spreadsheet and I thought about some other options as well. But what I settled on was a Google Sheet. My husband and I started our own GTD style weekly review a few months ago, and I started that on Google Sheets because he's more comfortable with that. So since I already had something that was working, it just seemed like the best place to start for my own project list. And just to be clear, the weekly review I do with my husband is for our joint projects that we're working on. And then my own weekly review will be for my projects that I'm working on solo. I think like true GTD guidance might suggest that it's better to have just one project list, but I find it useful to have our joint projects in one place that we review together, and then my personal projects are in another place that I review on my own. Now, Google Sheets may not be where I end up with this, but it got to a point where I was just going back and forth in circles trying to figure out where to store my project list. And I was like, I just have to try something and see what happens, or I was going to stay stuck. And so far, it's working out great, and I can always change my mind. So this is the first draft of my GTD project list. So the first column is just numbers, so I can keep track of how many projects that I have at a given time. The second column is a description of the project, and then the third column is if it's part of a bigger project, if that's applicable. And then the fourth column I have is where the project information is stored. So this is something I have found really helpful because I do store project information in different places depending on what tool would work best. Something I have learned is that it's helpful to have a home base for a project, even if it's just a single page in OneNote or a note in another app or something, anything. It's just helpful to have a place to put the information for your project, and it's kind of like a placeholder or representation of that project. So in this column, I note where the information is stored, and a lot of times it's in OneNote, but sometimes it might be in a spreadsheet, or it might be in a task or a reminder in Remember the Milk, which is an app I use for like tracking all my tasks. So the next few columns are dates on which I did an actual review. And I want to show you the key I made first, and then I'll talk a little bit more about some of these items. And this will be a shorter run through of a weekly review, and then I'll talk about it in more detail once I feel like I'm a little bit better at it and it's a little more polished. I'm kind of really in transition and I'm pretty new to it. So I will do a more detailed run through at some point in the future. So this is a key I made for myself, and this sits on the same page right under what I just showed you. The GTD criteria for what goes on your current projects list is anything you want to complete or have in a different state, would be another way to say that. So anything you want to complete within a year that's more than one next action. A check mark means that the next action is defined and is on a weekly to-do list or wherever it needs to be. The green means the item has been reviewed and there's no open loops, and the red means it's on hold for now. Now, before I tell you about some of these projects, I want to talk about why I have so many of them that are just on hold, and you'll see them coded in red. One of the things I've done over the last few years is gotten into a state of being overcommitted in GTD speak, meaning that I have started and committed to too many projects or outcomes, and I can't make regular progress on all of them. What's too many for one person may not be for another person, but I have taken on and committed to more than I can work on regularly right now. Since all of these projects are started and open, I think they rightfully belong on the project list. It's just that I can't consistently make progress on them right now. So putting this list together was really eye-opening because it helped me to see how many things I have started and I'm not making progress on. Ideally, I'd like to get my current project list narrowed down to just the things I can make steady progress on. So I don't plan on adding anything until some things get completed. So I'll just run quickly through a few of these. So this top line, HVAC, we had upgraded our HVAC system last year. And yes, it's been over a year and there are still some odds and ends still to do. So I do want to finish that. And I have that stored in a OneNote notebook. And the next actions are all defined. So that's why it's just green. It's checked off. I've been making progress. I've been working on installing Quicken and getting that up to date. And again, that's green. I'm making progress. Item number 4 is an example of something that I'm not making progress on. That's my most recent cell phone that I got, and I did like the setup I really needed to do right away, but there's a whole bunch of other setup that I just never finished. So that's why that's just in red, and I just haven't been working on it. What else? So there's 2 other things, like items 11 and 12. I've been thinking about getting an Aura ring, and that is a wearable that tracks your sleep. So I'm thinking about it. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it or not, and I just have a reminder in Remember the Milk, which is my task tracker. And I marked it green because it is reviewed, it's current, there's nothing that needs to be done, and I've decided that I'm going to hold on that until October 5th, because I also have a Fitbit, and Fitbit gives you sleep data too, so I want to see how that works out before I make a decision. But that's just an example of how it's been reviewed, it's current, there's nothing outstanding on it, and I'm just in a pattern of trying something else until this time. So that's just a few examples of some of the projects on there. Now, right before I started going through the project list, I said something like I don't want to add anything new until I'm making steady progress on all of my current projects. With that in mind, I want to talk about item 13. You'll notice that item 13 is the garage wall front left corner. And this is just a small finished project where I'm putting up a plywood wall and installing some tool storage. And if you look at where the information is stored, you'll see a reference to a date of 2018. So yes, I started this project in 2018 and it's still not done. So this slipped so far down in my awareness that I didn't even connect that it was an open project until my 3rd weekly review. Like you can see that the first 2 weekly reviews are blank, and then I didn't even connect it until the 3rd. And this is one of the results of being overcommitted. I didn't even have a good handle on all of the things on my plate, and I didn't review them regularly. Now this project is not a priority and probably won't get done soon, but I do like to have a placeholder for this on my weekly review. And another thing I learned with this item number 13, this garage project, is that, like I said, it took me a few reviews until I realized I had this open project. But I can assure you that every time I go into the garage and I see that half-finished project with my materials sitting right there, it bothers me. And it bothers me a lot. And this is something that David Allen talks about. He's the author of GTD, or Getting Things Done. And that this lack of clarity and lack of control or overview of your commitments, it takes a mental toll on you. Those unfinished projects, those unfulfilled promises, they kind of just keep nagging at the back of your mind, and they make it harder to be kind of fully present in whatever you're doing, because your brain is kind of scanning for all these undone things or what might have slipped through the cracks and stuff. And it may even hinder your work or hinder your brain power. So I do think this is really powerful in the sense that you can get just total clarity of exactly what's on your plate and what you're committed to. So that's my first few weekly reviews for September. So that's how they're going so far. So far, I'm really enjoying it. So there's just 2 more things I want to show you for September, and that is my annual plan. We just have one family birthday, and then my September calendar, blank and ready to fill in with all the good things that happen each day. So that's what I have for now. It feels a little rough, I'm a little scattered, but so far it's working and nothing has slipped through the cracks. As I do during every Plan With Me video, I want to encourage you to set up and start some sort of goal setting and review process. If weekly is more your style, you might really like the GTD system. So if you have questions or comments or something you want to see in more detail, you can leave a comment on this video and I will do my best to help you out. If you want to see more content like this, as well as OneNote tutorials and getting things done content, please subscribe by hitting the subscribe button, and let me know you like this by hitting the thumbs up button. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye-bye.